company covering everything. I'm talking news you ain't heard of, cause you know it's getting buried. Social justice, yeah, the stuff you need to know about. Marking politics that the corporate news won't cover. You know they don't think that you could see under, but you can now, cause the people we cover, they may not be famous, but their stories should be heard. Yeah, every voice matters. We should rise and fall together, and that's why.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Fuck It Friday. It is a free-for-all in my house. You can thank Andy for that. All of my fuzzy co-workers decided that they wanted to join this morning, so you may see a couple of cats, definitely some dogs, but it's Friday, and we're celebrating today, hence the princess tiara. So, Andy, good morning. Welcome to Friday.
Morning. It's lovely to see you in your arc.
It is raining too. Yes.
Excellent. It's usually casual Friday, so your animals are just casually allowed to, free range of the recording. So that's fun. It's going to be a free for all, anyways. Because of our guest.
Yeah, well, there's that. So real quick, I just wanted to share something funny that I came across on the internets that kind of describes why I'm just like, okay, whatever. So, so for people who are yet unaware, annually, the Sahara Desert has dust storms that sweep across the Atlantic. This year, it's significant. I think it was measured at 4,000 miles wide. And it was so strong, it has made it all the way over to the United States. It has already hit Puerto Rico, parts of Florida. So I am up in Illinois, and we are going to get this dust storm. It starts today, and then definitely on Sunday, it's going to get pretty significant. So it is just an anomaly of the weather. But I thought that this was funny when I was out checking on the progress of this dust storm. So let me put this up here. So the weather station put up this map of what they estimate it's going to look like by Sunday. The Saharan dust model shows that it's going to make its way up to North Carolina in the coming weekend, and then you can see it coming all the way up to Illinois, parts of Minneapolis, stretching all the way to New York. Obviously, the darker color is where it's going to hit significantly. So it's Houston, Dallas, Atlanta, Raleigh, St. Louis. And the comment below was just hilarious to me because it sums up everything, the horrors that we're dealing with. The comment by Judge E is awesome. I always wondered what it was like to live during the times of Civil War, Spanish flu, Great Depression, Civil Rights Movement, Watergate, and the Dust Bowl. Not all at once, mind you, but beggars and choosers and all. It cracked me up because that's... you can't argue with it. This is exactly what it feels like, and it is, it's something that we're all dealing with. It's rather difficult, but you gotta learn to laugh just a little bit. So here we are.
Who predicted that 2020 would be the apocalypse?
I know, and I still go back to those 2012 Mayan calendar memes where people say, okay, I get that 2012 was not the end of the world, but has any year since felt real? And no, not at all. So
yes, we can see clearly now. It's 2020.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So today's show is a little bit different in that there are so many horrific headlines that we could talk about. Oh, there goes my cat. But instead, we're going to focus on the positives today. And in
all
fact,
three of them.
Right. You're still breathing. Good on you. So the things that we're going to focus on are the things that corporate-owned media is not talking about. If you were just consuming MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, whatever, you would think that this primary number one isn't really happening. 2, that there's nobody running but Joe Biden, and 3, that the people who are actually winning their races are the standard vanilla incumbent corporate owned, I'm going to clean up my language, corporate Democrats. And that is not the case, not by far. So we're going to talk about a lot of that. We obviously can't get to every candidate, but what's exciting is if you've been paying attention and keeping track of things, you would know that progressives are winning their primary from one end of the country to the other. And that's exciting news, because already if all of these progressives that won their primaries make it through the general election, we have flipped the House. Now, the House is already in Democratic control. What I'm talking about is flipped the House from corporate Dem to progressive. And we have a number of candidates in the Senate who have won their primaries too. So this is exciting news. Yeah,
it's very exciting. And the other part of all of this is that friend of mine who is an MMT economist, Fadil Kaboub, who is one of the few academic activists who wears his activist T-shirt as well as a suit and tie, has taken upon himself to do webinar studies with a lot of the progressive candidates that are running and winning, and teaching them how to properly fund the policies that are near and dear to our hearts as progressives. When we know that, we are that even adds to for progressives that aren't being held back by the pay-go, the how you going to pay for it question. It's thrilling to me.
Oh, absolutely. And I go back to, was it last year? I think it was last year. My congressional rep, Sean Casten. Hi, Sean Casten, you lying fuck. He was.
You were going to clean up your language.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. My bad. He was a construct of the DCCC manipulating our race. And we were told that it's easier to work with a corporate establishment whore and push them to the left than it would be to, go with a Republican. I'm like, okay, well, all right. So my congressman has voted with Republicans a significant amount of time, and when he came to my town, a bunch of progressives were outside to greet him and ask him to please support Medicare for all, and we gave him numbers. Here's what we're paying for right now with elected officials. Here are the number of people in your own district who are not covered by insurance, who are disabled vets, uninsured, all of these things. And the thing that he said to us was, and I still have video of this somewhere, how are we going to pay for it? So we were right there ready with an answer, because it's alarming to me that someone that we have sent to Congress doesn't understand how federal appropriations work. So every bill that he signed off on and voted for that gave us, the Space Force and new tanks for Iowa that we don't need, he was saying that he didn't understand how that money was spent, which is obviously a lie. He knows. But he gave us the pushback of, well, how are you going to pay for it? And we were right there, because we understand macroeconomics. We understand how it works, thanks to people like Fadil Kaboub and all of these great resources that the information's out there. All you need to do is take a few minutes and piece through it. This is why, like, the Sunshine Movement, love everything that they're doing, but then they always stop at the how are you going to pay for it. And we need those kids and the young people to understand macroeconomics. So when you get a Sean Casten, or the DCCC tries to spoon feed you a corporate candidate, you can push back credibly. And how awesome is it if we have a 14-year-old who can answer the question, how we pay for it? And yet you've got this person running for Congress who claims to not know, right? So I think that that is a beautiful scenario, and we need to do more of that. And I think that the message is getting through because we're seeing so many progressives win their races in deeply red conservative states. So if conservatives are understanding that progressive policy is fiscally responsible, socially sound, how come Democrats don't get it?
Right. And another thing to consider, right, is that our Congress isn't black and white, right? I should say mine, our. Your Congress isn't black and white. You know, there are different degrees of centrism of people. And part of one of Fadl Kaboob's points in an interview that I heard just recently was that there are a lot of centrists that are willing to sit on the fence and go to where, you know, the hot hand is, per se, and would be quite willing to change teams if they saw that the power was shifting to the progressive side, right? So you're not just talking about new candidates that are winning and adding to the squad numbers, right, for lack of a better term. You're also talking about potentially flipping centrists that are currently in office that will add to those numbers. So this is going to be a very dynamic time, even between now and November, right? And then ultimately in 2022, that this very conceivably could be, you know, that time what we mark in history when we started to transition to a just society from the corporately run neoliberal centrist, you know, oligarchy that we currently have now, right? And that's huge.
Absolutely. So I believe our guest has joined. You might have known this particular guest from a show that we did earlier. This is Warren Lynch. He is, and I'm going to let you give his title because I can't remember. He is now an elected official. He has been an outspoken advocate. He and the lovely Miss Stee in Malden, Massachusetts, and just doing some phenomenal things there. So we've had him on before, and we are so delighted to welcome him back, the data wizard, Warren Lynch. Good morning, Warren. Oh, did we lose him?
He's been abducted by aliens again.
All right, I'm gonna let Andy sort that one out. Yeah, so at some point he will grab his coffee and join us. We know he's in the meeting room, so somebody at his house will join. Maybe today we'll get Steve. That would be a huge win. I would think so. So
we're not sure.
Right. So one of the things that I actually pulled this from Warren's page, so I'm going to put this up here now. So I think it kind of speaks to the conversation that we've been having here. Why are progressives winning in red states and the fiscal responsibility of it, right? So here you have the CNBC headline, breaking news that stocks jump in the session as the Fed announces it will pump more than $500 billion into short-term banking, right? So your stocks, you own stocks if you have a 401k or a savings account. You can't use that to eat. You can't use that to pay your mortgage unless you have direct effect right now from COVID. You've been hospitalized. Then you can borrow against your stocks, but you still got to pay that back. So this is something to keep in mind when we look at Wall Street. You and I do not survive off of what happens in the stock market. This is for the upper 4%, right? They're making all their money, and even if you're retired and you have dividends, I guarantee you it's pennies, it's crumbs by comparison. So speaking of comparison, here is the cost. And these are scored by CBO and Congressional estimates. Free universal school lunch, so we never again have a child go hungry. And for those who aren't familiar, school lunch was requested by the U.S. military because they were getting too many recruits that were malnourished. So this is, if you're a patriot and you're all about the military, school lunch is something that is vital. So school.
And I just wanted to make sure that people realize that the 20 billion is not per student.
No, no, the children don't eat that much. I mean, if as a parent, it feels like it, but they don't. So, universal child care, so that you never, like, I remember, now my kid's 24. I remember it was more than a car payment, almost a mortgage payment to pay for daycare and before and after school care. So to provide that for every child is 150 billion. Free college. This is at a state school, not Ivy League, state school, so you can get a good education and get back to the U.S. being the intellectual capital location of the world. That's 80 billion. And all of these things provide exponential value to our own GDP. So we're actually growing the value of the country while we're investing in these things. Housing for all. This is a simple lift. So when we're doing Memorial Day photo ops with veterans, let's remember our homeless veterans who would benefit from Housing for All at 250 billion. These are affordable things and a hell of a lot cheaper than shoring up banks. It just is, because I think the reality of it that we need to recognize is all of the CARE Act money that was supposed to go to our small businesses on Main Street went to the Small Business Administration to hand off to their partner banks to issue as loans. So in some cases, those loans become grants if you pass enough hurdles. But in most cases, you're going to have to repay that back with a low interest rate. So let's cover that again. Public money was given to a private institution to profit from. If that's not socialism, tell me what it is. Because that sure sounds like socialism to me. I don't know. So did we get Warren back?
No, the aliens haven't dropped him off yet.
Did he freeze up? Warren, no, where'd you go?
I'm looking at his camera feed. I can't tell if that's the floor or the ceiling.
Come on, Warren. It's Friday.
Wait, hang on.
Oh, do we have a Warren sighting?
Yes, we do. There he is.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, it's nice that the aliens brought you back early.
Hi.
There he is. Oh, looking all comfy and chill. Good morning, Warren. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm so excited to talk about this stuff today because nobody else is talking about it. And if you go to Warren's page, you too will be flooded with tons of snark, wisdom, and some happy news for progressives across this country. So this is why I'm so excited to have you here, because we get to talk about all of these huge wins across the country. So
now before we do, I just want to make sure that Warren realizes that you see Carrie there, that you see that she has her tiara on for your, and I, of course, have my
yeah.
Okay, now is it in the same spot it was the last time? Because
yes.
I do recall you looking for it.
Yeah. He's
where did I put it?
Wild times with the hat. I'm sure it disappears. But Warren, while you're looking for it, I wanted to start with the McGrath race, and I'm going to pull up a graphic here. And this is from Warren's page. I stole it, and I thought it was timely. So Warren had posted this, I guess, yesterday. And so for those who are not aware, in the Kentucky primary, there was Amy McGrath, the former,
there we go.
I want to say Air Force. Amy McGrath, she's openly gay, and she was running for this seat to challenge Mitch McConnell. And she was the darling of the DCCC and Democrats. But what happened is throughout her race, she started coming out as more and more of a self-proclaimed supporter of Donald Trump and working with, Republicans. And so I'm like, oh, God, this woman is trying to be a closet MAGA. She ran before. She decided she was going to run again. So how did that whole blue MAGA thing work out for her? And Warren posted on his page, right now we have Charles Booker in the lead. The vote totals are starting to come in. So there's the hat. Way to go, Warren. So talk about it now. Look, your perspective, just like everyone else, we're watching this race. What are your thoughts on this? Why is Charles Booker beating this candidate? I think you posted the amount of money that she got. It was like 40 million.
41 million.
How is this possible?
Well, Booker has actual grassroots support in Kentucky. She just moved to Kentucky. She spends almost no time there. She gets all her support from people from out of state that want to beat Mitch McConnell, but they don't even live there. They don't even know anything about Kentucky.
Wait a second. Are you saying McGrath is a carpetbagger? I didn't know that.
Big time.
Oh.
Them's fighting words.
Yeah, I did not know this. So we have, so they went with identity politics, right? She's a woman, she's attractive, and she's openly gay, and she's got military experience. So this should be the cookie cutter figure of a Democratic candidate. Warren, what happened? Why is she tanking? She's got all this money. It makes no sense.
Well, I mean, it's good to be part of a identity minority group that's progressive for more people like that to be in office. But Booker, he's a minority too, and he was big time involved in the whole Breonna Taylor situation, which happened in Kentucky, and he has type 1 diabetes, which he had to ration insulin to get food for his daughters. And, he's in touch with the concerns of working class Americans a lot more than she is. She may be LGBTQ, but, he's a minority too. And that's not everything that people in Kentucky care about.
Right.
She says she's going to support Trump, and he talks about supporting their schools and their healthcare and their livelihood.
The audacity. When we're talking about Booker, we have to remember that it's actually the bluegrass roots support that he has.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Bluegrass roots.
Good point. So the other race, and this one was a sleeper. This was Josh Hicks. I think he was run out of the 6th Congressional District.
In Kentucky?
Yeah. And I forget this phenomenal spread here. I think he was up, I want to say it was like 60%, maybe it was more. And when you go out to his website, he hidden in the language is his support for universal health care and those kind of things. You want to talk about that just a little bit? What did you find? What was your impression of this Josh Hicks character?
I'd say that Josh Hicks he's kind of a moderate progressive. He's like Elizabeth Warren or Kamala Harris. He's not the boldest progressive in the world, but he's progressive, certainly for Kentucky and a lot more than Amy McGrath.
Well, we were also talking about those, those candidates that might be considered centrist, but if they are willing to switch sides when they see the wind change, right? If we got progressives that are now becoming the majority in Congress, and we have centrists that are watching that change because they they have their eyes even a tiny bit open, then they're going to, you know, be more progressive themselves, right? And quite honestly, at this point, any advantage that we can garner from that is will take, you know, considering how stacked the cards are against us.
Yeah, because they'll flip flop for our side too. You know, moderates, they just go with the flow, and we got a whole bunch of really bold, strong progressives elected, especially in New York this weekend.
Yeah, I went and pulled up some of the stats, so I'll have them scrolling, but when you talk about this, so we'll see the numbers. So you had mentioned new progressives who won their primaries was 31. Progressives with primaries coming up 24. Incumbents in the House right now is 31. So what we could achieve in November right now is a possible of 86. I'm going to challenge that number because I think it's low. I think we're a lot higher than that in potential. Based on
That's only the ones I know about, and if
okay.
other people know about more, I'd love to add them to my list.
Okay, perfect. So everybody who's watching, if you know of a progressive who won in a primary race in your state or in another state, let's consolidate all that information. Send it to Warren. He's going to be our funnel for all things. So I think that is a great place to start, because I think that number is actually 120 possible after November.
Hey,
which
nice.
is amazing. So what that means is not only, okay, so the House is in Democratic control, but it's corporate Dem. And we already have, like you said here, 31 progressive incumbents right now. And then we add to that number, so what we have effectively done is flip the House from corporate Dem to progressive Dem. And that's huge. Huge.
Yeah, because they won't be able to get anything without. There's a whole huge coalition of 68 progressives. You know, that'll control every move they make in the House. And we could flip the Senate too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we get to give all of the centrists that remain centrists really funny nicknames.
Yes, nicknames.
Speaking of which, how is Sewer Lips?
Oh, he's gone.
Oh, okay. So you've lost contact. That's too bad.
Oh, we still use the center he built to have progressive meetings.
Oh, nice. That works. You say a little, statement of thanksgiving to Sewer Lips for giving us this lovely.
Thanks, Sewer Lips.
Well, that's exactly right. So we'll come to you and Steve to get the nickname monikers for all of our corporate oligarch-serving Democrats, and we can just, go with it. Maybe.
Oh, I'd be glad to. Definitely, especially the senators, because there's only 100 of them.
Oh, definitely. Okay, so let me put up that stat too, because you had that. You were so helpful. So you had posted this about the progressive Senate candidates on the list. So Jeff Merkley, Paula Jean Swearingen, and Paula Jean, we would love to interview you here to talk about that. We do have some other candidates that we've lined up in West Virginia for interviews. Andrew Romanoff, we interviewed here, so if you want to get involved with the Colorado one, his primary is on the 31st. Get your ballots in now. Betsy Sweet, Jessica Scaring, I'm butchering the last name. Antoine Pierce, yeah. So, and then of course Charles Booker, who we were just talking about. This is amazing. So what we're actually doing is flipping the Senate too. And some of these candidates like Romanoff will be challenging Republicans. So not only are we flipping the Democratic incumbents, but we're changing seats from red to blue. So holy cow. So if on the off chance that Trump wins the re-election, we now have a supermajority of progressives in Congress. So that changes everything. Hi Shale, good morning. How are you this morning? I want to make sure I'm pronouncing that right. Shale or Shali? I'm terrible with names. I'm sorry. But
Well,
good morning.
You can't see any either,
No.
right? So
No, I can't. It's awful. So
another point that I was going to make about the New York, even the progressive candidates that didn't win the races, and a lot of that had to do with just because it was the first time they've entered politics, and name recognition is much difficult. And we see that a lot of the lessons that were learned from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez when she won her race was that it was boots on the ground, going door to door and introducing yourself. Well, in the middle of a pandemic, that now has been taken away from most of these people, and that was their number one way to introduce themselves. So even with that, the fact that, you know, if you're not getting millions of dollars from corporate shills or whatever, right, and they're taking away the one major ability you have to introduce yourself, and they're still doing well and winning. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. Like, I'll point to Lauren Ashcraft, the one District 12 in New York that we interviewed here, and absolutely just an amazing person, amazing candidate. She's major MMT candidate as well, and she was the only one that lived outside of the major New York centers, right? So basically, like, considered an outsider to that race. Yeah, and so that's why the candidates don't come from there, because they basically figure they have no chance. Well, she, you know, was in a very tough race, and there was another kind of sort of pseudo progressive candidate in that race as well, running against was it Maloney, I think, that she was running against, and she still did reasonably well considering that race. And now with her, you know, name being recognized from this race, only looking for even better things in 2022, which is huge. And you know, there's another incumbent that really needs to be, you know, solidly beaten. However you can get it. She would definitely, if the Sorting Hat was put on her head, they would say Slytherin.
She had, sorry. Oh, she had kind of a tough time because there were 4 opponents. But we won over 100 races in New York alone. And it looked like Amy McGrath had 40 times as much money as Charles Booker, and he's ahead now. And our wins have just been huge.
Great. And one polling place for 600,000 people in Louisville, which is just, you know, unbelievable. These people were banging on the doors, keep the polling places open, to demanding their rights to vote. That's amazing.
Well, Booker's own attorney had to petition to get one polling place to stay open till 9 p.m. because there were so many people still in line. So this is all part of a fascist regime. And I gotta point out the fact that Democrats are complicit to this, because we saw this in Georgia, we saw it in South Carolina, we saw it in Kentucky, where the Democratic Party itself left it up to the candidates to petition the court to keep those polling places open. Where's the Democratic Party? Right? So
like in this, I guess in Kentucky it's a Republican Secretary of State, but in most of these states it's other Democrats.
And I've said it before in Illinois, for anybody who still believes that Illinois has two separate parties, you are sadly mistaken. How many times can you see a headline about the head of the Democratic Party in counties socializing, having a great time with the Republican, and deciding who gets to run, right? So,
Yep.
so this is what's going on here, and they're just so open about it. I guarantee you it's probably happening in your state too. And that's
Oh,
part of
yeah,
it.
for sure.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. So this is why seeing all of these numbers and the progressives that are actually winning is huge. So this is part of the larger strategy of, you know, fuck around and find out. Dem enter, dem exit. Both of these things working together on the backdrop of social unrest for a righteous cause. And I think that that is truly what's important here. I was talking to an older gentleman yesterday, he's 74, and he lived through the first, not the first, but the last civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s. And we were drawing parallels to today. And he brought up the statement, he's like, look, I'm 74. I hope that this time it actually sticks, because we saw this before, but we didn't have enough, we didn't have a strong enough coalition. And I'm thinking now we do, because we're seeing it in politics, we're seeing it in the social sphere. You know, Warren, you've talked about it. You're in Malden, Massachusetts. Boston has a huge problem with police brutality. So what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Well, so we're banning tear gas, we're banning rubber bullets, we're ending qualified immunity, and there's a huge package of police reform that just passed unanimously. We're making Juneteenth into a federal holiday, not that that's related to police. Yeah, since the stuff I told you about us changing the Massachusetts platform a few years ago, and all the politicians having to follow it, we've managed to make some big changes in policing in Massachusetts. It looks like even the Republican governor is going to sign it.
See, that's amazing. You guys have your small little contingent of disruptors, led by the glorious Stee, has now changed policy for an entire state. That's just, for those who didn't see the first time you were on here, how did you do it?
Well, because we, the people, we are the policymakers, and if we get enough of us together and organize enough, that's who makes the rules. You know, it seems like these small groups of people with money and power can do it, but that's not the way our system is set up to work. They've tweaked it in their direction as much as they can, but in the end of the day, there's so many more of us. And it's not, we can't do it with just the Bernie people, but if we team up with other people who agree with us on the issues, you know, there's tons of people who don't care about Bernie, but they care about police reform. There's tons of people who, you know, they don't care about police reform, but they care about Medicare for all. And if we go out in our communities and we find them, get them on our side, we can do anything.
And you're proving it. I mean, it sounds contrite, but
Massachusetts basically by not caring if I lose and going back and just being stubborn. They call Stee the Relentless because she just never gives up. And we went back 17 times in a row until Malden let us do what we wanted, and we just went back to the state. I don't know, it must be 50 times. We just keep showing up, and then we lose, and we show up again, we lose, and we show up again, we almost win, and we show up again, and then we win.
okay, so there's a lesson there. Just keep wear them down. Just wear them down, and have snarky fun while you're doing it. And it's gonna become a fun night out, date night. So
we've got the numbers. They can keep pouring money in, but they'll eventually run out of money. They'll definitely run out of bodies because we've got 100 for every one of them.
Well, and
It's the annoyance factor that they didn't sign up for, right? Like you
Yeah.
have to reach critical mass of why am I bothering? These people are just going to like make fun of me or, you know, disagree with everything I do. I should just retire with my, you know, my pension and just get a cottage down by the lake and just enjoy the rest of my life. And, you know, I've been selfish my whole life. Why stop now?
Yeah. Yeah. And rich people aren't used to stress and conflict the way us poor people are.
Right.
So, you know, you call them a few names and they cry and they go home.
Like sewer lips. So this is an excellent point. And I think that the Black Lives Matter protests and everything else is really bearing this out in that there's more of us. We're on what, week 4? This is the end of week 4. Protests have not stopped, and already we're starting to see now. Obviously, these are kind of piecemeal appeasement tactics, like taking the statues down. Okay, that's great. Changing the names of school, great. Not what we're asking for in totality, and we cannot stop until we get it, until we live up to being the people that the Constitution says we are. Equal protection, due process. These things are non-negotiable. And if the police cannot do it, like in New York where they were crying, then they need to be defunded, and we need to rework and rethink how we deal with criminal justice. This is just, there's no arguing against it.
We can do it. We're in charge.
Yeah,
It seems like we're not, but we are.
yes, don't listen to mainstream media because, believe it or not, they don't have your best interests at heart.
No. And just one simple fact that in writing several articles, I didn't realize, but in advertising dollars alone, just from pharmaceutical companies, the Journal of American Medicine went through and did a study, and it was like $270 billion in ad revenue was given to Fox News, CNBC, CNN. So of course they're going to talk down progressive policy that wants to negotiate drug prices because follow the money, right? So this is why what we're doing here, what Warren's doing on his own personal page, independent media, these things are so important. So Warren, I know that you you have a Patreon account. So let's plug your Patreon account. Where can people help support you? And as much as, you know, $1 can help somebody like Warren do this data stuff full time so that we can help Warren get the word out about what is really happening in this election.
Yeah, patreon.com/Warren Lynch. And I put a lot of work into finding all the progressive candidates I can find and putting them in lists so people can find them in their area. And we can get them elected from the bottom up, get a nice grassroots movement going. But it takes, you know, 20 hours a state. And I got to work a day job. So, when people have $1 to send my way, that helps a lot, and I can get more done. I hope
Plus that hat's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So for anybody who's watching either now or as the week goes on, patreon.com/Warren Lynch. We'll include the link here. And I cannot stress how much $1 matters, especially when we're talking about the media, the work that Warren's doing. So for example, if you have $20 and you put $1 to someone like Warren Lynch and $1 to a couple different independent media outlets, your $20 per month changes everything. And it seems like hyperbole, but it's really not. I think Bernie's campaign blew this notion out of the water about where to apply and vote with your dollars. he didn't take corporate money. And so now we see all these other candidates doing the same thing. So let's say you put $1 towards a progressive candidate who's running in the general or somebody who's still running in the primary. It matters. There are 300 million people in this country, and if just a handful of us took $1 and gave to, you know, find your top 3 independent media, top 5, find your top 5 candidates, and then somebody like Warren. Yeah, we're going to have Warren on again talking about the hundreds and hundreds of progressive candidates who are winning not only in Congress, but in their state races and local. And wow, will you see things change in your neighborhood?
Because as you know, independent media
is regular people like us that decided to help during their spare time, and we're poor. We're not like these people making $200,000 to work for CNN. And so if you send us $1 or $10, it makes it makes a big disproportionate difference. And definitely, if you send that $1 to 10 independent media outlets and 10 progressive candidates, you'll have made a world of difference.
Absolutely.
Because we've gotten really good at doing more with less.
Yeah, like Jana Ludwig, she's running for Senate out in Wyoming. She only raised $35,000. Her opponent has $8 million, and they're neck and neck because we can do more with less. It's like Charles Booker. He'll be a much better legislator than Mitch McConnell, even if they had the same policies. Knows where we're coming from as us American. And the same reason why they'll be good legislators is why $2 can help them big time, for sure.
And I'm pretty sure that Charles Booker knows that a banana doesn't cost $10.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's a different story with ice cream, of course.
What was that, $20,000 worth of ice cream and refrigerator in one scene? Yeah, so there's another good candidate who is running in the general against Nancy Pelosi. This is Shahid Buttar.
You're close.
No,
Shahid.
Shahid. Dang it! I had to do that promo again. Play it up there. That was hilarious.
That's right.
Shahid.
And as we remember, he said, if I had a nickel for every time somebody mispronounced it, I'd be as rich as Nancy Pelosi.
That's exactly right. So that's one race where I think people need to get involved and eat. I swear to you, if Nancy Pelosi, for every time that Nancy Pelosi has had you screaming at the radio or the TV or on your Facebook page, if you set aside one nickel and then you send that to Shahid, he's going to win. And part of that, the money that you are paying goes to certain things, right? So that you understand, it's not just mailers, which are super expensive, but it's ad dollars because you cannot possibly get to every door. So people tune out on elections. Some people don't even know there are elections going on in November. So you have to get your message in front of someone at least 6 times for them to retain your name. And Nancy Pelosi's got a bully pulpit, and she's had it for 17 years. They know who she is. They don't know who Shahid is, and they don't know that he's a constitutional lawyer. They don't know that he has been an advocate in San Francisco and the surrounding area for years. They don't know that he has worked on policy and that he's smart and intelligent and a regular person. So this is where, you know, your little piggy bank given to a candidate helps buy those ads. And until there are more networks like ours that are bringing candidates on to share their message and getting it across the network, this is still going to be necessary. So keep that in mind.
Yep, you can make
a difference. A big one. With your $2.
In everyone's life, in all our lives. And change over to just society where people are put first instead of, you know, being behind property.
Exactly. So sorry, I didn't mean to turn this into you know, a telethon, but I want people to know exactly why candidates are asking for money, particularly progressive candidates. We're never going to get to that level, but until we can get rid of Citizens United and start doing public financing of campaigns, the ask has to be there. So it really matters for you and for somebody like Warren, who's doing amazing things and keeping the numbers honest, right? So you didn't hear about any of these progressives who won from corporate media. They skipped it. All they gave us was Jamal in New York and AOC. Like, those were dog bones. We were supposed to be happy with just those 2 wins. They missed so many others, and they don't want you to know about it. So,
Mondare Jones won, Jabari Brisport won. We had 100 progressive wins in New York, especially at the state level. The national media never covers the state level, and yet we got all these out and out democratic socialists who say, I am a socialist, I'm going to bring down capitalism in the New York State Senate. And it's such a beautiful thing. You don't hear much about it. Julia Salazar's in there, Jessica Ramos, Mike Ginaris. And the first thing Jabari Brisport said when he got elected was, I am a democratic socialist, and I'm a proud Black socialist because my people were brought to this country as capital.
yeah, and I think that's what people miss, right? We all say, I'm a capitalist. No, you're not. You're not a capitalist. You are human capital in this big machine. And Jabari, wow, how do you counter that? Because he was literally the descendant of slaves brought to this country as human capital for capitalists, right? So,
and he'll say that right out loud on stage.
It's
so beautiful.
Yep, exactly.
We could have so many more. We could have more like him all over our government.
Right, and I think that is important. So that's something we started doing here is accuracy in the headlines. So we need to start being accurate when we talk to others, especially our neighbors on the right who are still terrified of this socialism and don't realize that they are benefiting from socialist policies and government services every single day. And this is the product of corporate-owned media, people who are making money through your suffering.
But conversations with your neighbors
flip this so quickly because like in Malden, we have this mutual aid society for COVID-19, help people during COVID-19 get food and financial assistance and PPE and stuff. And it's now more popular with conservatives and right wingers. They're like, oh yeah, neighborhood togetherness. This is what we always wanted. And, you know, it's started by socialists, it's run by socialists. And like half of them, 2 weeks later, they're like, you know what? I'm progressive.
I just didn't know it.
Well, I actually had that here in my small red county that is MAGA country. There was an elected county board member who, you know, I didn't agree with her on everything, but when she started to see the policy and then the political machine here really started to take a nosedive into corruption, she stood in front of everybody and went, I'm a progressive. And I was just, my jaw hit the floor because I was like, you are literally committing political suicide. But she knew that that was the right path to go. That was the ethical path, or you're complicit to what your own local party is doing to bankrupt townships and do all of this. So I am so encouraged. Despite everything that's going on in our apocalypse, still waiting for the zombie apocalypse, but despite everything that's going on, I think we needed to take a moment to talk about the good things that are happening that we may not
Mhm.
recognize. So thank you, Warren. This was
Well, thank you.
too short, but I'm sure we'll have you back again because this primary is still going on, and then we have a DNC pseudo convention where we the people are not invited. Yeah, so that's happening. And then we've got, of course, the November general, and I cannot believe that Joe Biden is still running. This amazes me. So
Running is a bit of a stretch. I would say using his walker.
his campaign still exists, and that's a problem because the people that he's courting, like Rahm Emanuel, I live in Chicago. Come on now, learn from our mistake. This is who you want running the country. You might as well take Donald Rumsfeld because, oh, by the way, Condoleezza Rice is on his short list for VP. Do you not see this? This is just incredible.
He either doesn't know what he's doing or he's corrupt or both. But we get to set the agenda in so many ways now.
It's like your friend or your neighbor who took the brave step of saying that they were progressive. That could have been political suicide back then, but now it's a few months later. Saying you're progressive is the popular thing now.
Right.
We moved the window. We changed the conversation, and pretty soon people like Joe Biden, they may want non-progressiveness, but they'll be embarrassed to show their faces talking about it.
Oh, I agree. We're the cool kids now.
Yeah.
Yay! That's wonderful. So, all right, we are now past the top of the hour. Warren, we got to let you go, but thank you so much. And we will post a link to your Patreon so that anybody who wants to support this so that we can get the real information can help you. And we so appreciate you taking time this morning to talk to us. Someday, maybe we will get Steve on the show. Maybe.
Sure. That's right, because we want to hear the noises that she's famous for firsthand.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on, and I'll tell her that, and hopefully we'll get her.
That would be
Thank you
fantastic.
for keep doing the great work that you're doing, and hopefully
the surrounding states will catch fire the same way. The progressive movement, hopefully it will start to look like the coronavirus soon and sweep right across the country. Sorry to use that analogy. You have to try to find positives somewhere.
So, all right. Well, we will get out of here and let you get to your weekend. Please join us back here on Monday at 10 a.m. I have no idea what we're talking about. Hopefully some really good things. And then we have some big stories coming out within the next few days, as well as a nice introspective tribute to Pride Month. It is now Pride Month, so we need to talk about the struggles that continue for the LGBT community, in particular women of color who are trans, who are being targeted in some egregious ways. So we are going to talk about that and bring awareness to these issues, as well as continue saluting everyone who is out at the protest for Black Lives Matter. You matter. What you're doing is making a difference, and we salute you in every way possible. So also, one thing, we are participating in Blackout Tuesday. So if you happen to be a person of color who owns a business, we are giving away free advertising on our network for your business, because we believe in you and we want you to have a level playing field. So we will provide free advertising to you across all of our networks. And right now we're streaming to 10 different platforms, as well as our own website. So with that, we will get out of here. Have a good weekend. Keep your head up. There are wins happening, good news, and stay focused on those. So have a good day.
Take care.
Bye.